Hello, and thank you for giving us another opportunity to spend some time with you on Stairway to Health, brought to you by Health Experts Canada. We've got some great ideas, new information, and hopefully a few laughs for you today. Who knows, if you're not careful, you may learn something.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Stairway to Health podcast. I'm your host, Frank Peary, and I'm here with...
I'm Marilyn Mitchell.
And Marilyn, today I want to talk about one of the 5 foundational food and beverage categories that we teach all our clients about. I'd like to talk about carbohydrates.
Oh no, not the dreaded C word.
Absolutely. Well, the C word. Yes, the C word. Yes, carbohydrates.
Oh,
that
man.
C word. So much talk about whether they're good, whether they're bad, so many different fads out there in the dietary world in terms of whether we should, be eating low carb, no carb, intermittent fasting, keto diet, so on and so forth.
Or back in the 80s during the dynasty days where everybody ate nothing but carbs.
Oh boy.
No protein, no fats, just carbs.
Like, it's no wonder everybody is so confused out there when it comes to health and wellness and diet and nutrition. I don't like entitling any food group good or bad.
No.
The reality is people just need to gain control over how they think about carbohydrates and understand the differences between the carbohydrate-rich foods that are out there. Like, let's talk about the good stuff. Carbohydrates are the number one energy source for the body. The body consumes the carbohydrate food. The body then converts it into glycogen. That food is converted into glycogen, which is the sugar needed to produce energy for our body, right? For us to function. And so really what it boils down to is how much sugar is that food being converted into? So this is a topic, I guess, a little bit about, carbohydrates, but also sugar, because there's a direct correlation between the two.
And people don't understand that sugar, carbs are sugar. They become sugar in the body. And that's where the problem lies. If we only ate enough carbs that we were burning off and our body was utilizing, there's no issue.
No, we'd be in a great position.
That's right. But what we do is our carb intake is greater than our usage. And when the carbs don't get used up, they convert to sugars. Sugar, we all know what sugar turns into in our body.
Well, if there's too much of it, yeah.
So the thing is that it's that cycle. So too much of anything, even a good thing, is bad.
Absolutely. Too much sugar, it affects insulin, right? It affects the insulin response in the human body. It can lead to diabetes, as the worst case scenario. Type 2 diabetes, by the way, it's a man-made disease. It is caused because of lifestyle choices. It is not, it is a disease, don't get me wrong.
Oh, no, it's an actual disease.
And people need to be treated for it. But so often, more often than not, it's a disease that can be handled without medications if lifestyle was addressed first and foremost.
Dietary lifestyle
change. How much carbohydrates we consume, how much sugar is converted in the human body directly goes to affecting liver function. We talked about this on a previous show. We talked about non-alcohol fatty liver syndrome. Right? Disease.
Yeah.
It's definitely a thing. And because sugar is primarily responsible for how the liver functions, right? Too much of it, not so great. It affects energy and mental fatigue.
Oh,
carbohydrate consumption does. If we're eating the right type of carbs and we're burning through, like you said, the energy that's there for our body to use, and we don't overconsume, then we've got great energy, stabilized energy throughout the course of the day, mental focus, clarity. But if there's too much, right, like anything, the body gets sluggish. The body gets, we're weighed down by some of that sugar.
Literally,
right. And that leads me to my next point. It affects weight gain.
Oh, yeah.
So carbohydrates can be incredibly good, and they can also be incredibly bad depending on how we're consuming and what we're consuming. So complex carbohydrates, a lot of people hear this term being thrown around, and complex carbohydrates are actually good carbohydrates. Contrary, like it's funny because there's complex carbs and simple carbs.
Yeah.
And when we think of complex carbs, we think of something difficult, right? And so maybe it's not so good. And simple, well, that's easy. So that must be
good. Yeah.
Opposite
it's
is
the
true.
opposite. I know. And we have that discussion with people all
the time. Complex carbohydrates are your fruits, your veggies, your whole grains. I mean, your fibers. Those are the types of complex carbs that we're talking about that are highly beneficial for the body. And of course, simple carbs are the bad ones if you're going to call them as such. And they're the foods that have all the added sugar or too much sugar for what the body can tolerate or handle. And I'll say this very, very clearly. I want to be clear. So much of how many carbs we can consume and what type of carbs we can consume in the course of a day is directly dependent on our lifestyle. It's a very different case scenario when you see somebody who's incredibly active or who has a job that's incredibly physical. Very different ideas to what type of carbohydrates their body can use and burn through versus somebody who sits behind a desk all day.
Well, their body, the one who, your first example, they need more carbohydrates. That's not a question of maybe I should choose to do it, but they do. They need it for the energy. They're, like you say, they're burning through it. The person who sits at a desk, their body isn't being demanded of. So the carbs that if they were to eat the same amount, the person at the desk sitting there, he or she is not going to burn through them. So as we said at the beginning, it turns into sugar, and then sugar turns into
stored fat, and that's why you're falling asleep at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
And what's our result? We think, oh, you know what I should do? I should get a donut because that'll make me feel great.
Right.
And although, if we understood that it was that bagel that you had that made you feel bad
in the first place.
That's right.
And it's not that, again, I don't like calling certain foods bad or good. It's just we teach our clients to eat 3 hours at a time. The concept of optimal health and wellness, right? The foundations of functional wellness teach you to eat every 3 hours and eat for the upcoming 3 hours of your day. Now, some people might hear that and they're thinking, Frank, you're nuts. Who the hell eats every 3 hours? Well, there are ways to do this, folks. And it's not about eating big, huge meals every 3 hours. Not. But when you eat every 3 hours for the upcoming 3 hours of your day, you can manage your intake very effectively. Because if you're sitting behind a desk between the hours of 9 and 5, you adjust the type of foods that you need to be consuming for that type of energy output.
Right.
But let's say you've got a hockey game that you're playing in a men's league or women's league that day after work, by 7 o'clock, you're hitting the ice. Well, guess what? Chances are your dinner needs to be loaded with carbohydrates in order to feed you the energy that is necessary to get you through that game. So it really is. And in most cases, we would tell people who don't have sports or activities, why would you load up on high carbohydrates at dinner time or for your last meal of the day when in 3 hours you're going to be turning in and going to sleep? Does your body actually need all that energy when you're going to bed? Well, I don't want to know, but the reality is if you need the energy when you're going to bed, okay, I guess it's fine. But the reality is most people are trying to get to sleep, right, when they go to bed. And in that case, your body doesn't need to be overstimulated by sugar and insulin response and so on and so forth.
But isn't it true, too, that the average person can look at seasonally what their body's using and what they need? So in other words, in my case, I know that in spring, summer, and fall, in the nicer season here in where we live anyway, I can get outside and I can walk and I can go around and you're doing more outdoor things. You might be doing gardening, you're doing all that. So if I have pasta for lunch one day and I'm going out to do it, that's fine because I'm working it through because that's my lifestyle during that season. In the dead of winter, when I'm not going anywhere. And if I'm at work, I'm not going out on my lunch hour to walk around. When I get home, I'm hunkered down, doors locked. That's it. It's winter. I don't need that same carbohydrate intake.
Sure. And then again, in the dead of winter, if you're somebody that's jumping out your front door and slapping on the skis and, driving yourself down, a ski hill on 2 feet,
Yeah, okay.
then yeah, it's different, right? I mean, but you're absolutely right. The concept of eating in season and for your lifestyle, I think what it boils down to is looking at the total sugar consumption, the total sugar intake, and understanding that carbohydrates are a form of sugar consumption.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it's all about, to understand the impact on the human body.
But that's not to say, like one of our clients who did make me laugh out loud, she was telling me that she had been on Dr. Google and found out that there are certain vegetables that she shouldn't eat because of the high sugar content. And she's going on this self-proclaimed diet of her own and doing all this. And she said to me, so I've decided no more baby carrots because they're very high in sugar. And I thought, does she really think that she has 85 pounds to lose because she's overeaten the baby carrots? I mean,
quantity over quality. I don't know.
So I think that, yes, we have to understand that carbohydrates all have sugar and they have the potential of not being the best idea to have, but they're different times. A piece of birthday cake once a month, a small corner because it's your nephew's birthday or something, is not going to put you over the edge.
Absolutely not. It boils down to that 80-20 rule that we teach so dramatically inside of the State of Shock Success program. That 80-20 rule that gives you that ability to function, right? That social level of responsibility. You're allowed to indulge in certain things. As a matter of fact, I remember coaching athletes nutritionally when they were performing at some of them at the highest level, and telling them, if you're going to have that piece of cake, that donut, that chocolate bar, the best time for you to consume it is going to be within 1 hour right after that workout or that physical exertion, that extreme physical exertion, because they've burned through their glycogen. They've wasted through it. It's gone. And then, of course, you tap into fat. I mean, you can reduce or eliminate carbohydrates and still provide an energy source for the body, quote unquote, the ketogenic diet. You can replace carbs with fat.
Absolutely.
And still maintain a high level of energy output. The key there, folks, is to understand it's healthy fat that you should be using, right, to generate that energy production, as opposed to tons of trans fats and saturated fats and negative fats.
And all of that, keeping in mind that if you're going to do that and you've traded your body, switched it over from burning carbs to burning fats, which we know is more difficult for your body. It's more of a challenge for it.
Well, it's not the first thing the body looks
No, it's not. It's okay. If I have to do it, I will. And it does burn the fat. Keeping in mind, you take that piece of cake and have it while you're on keto. And then all of a sudden your body's going, whoa, thank God I don't have to work that hard. Here's some carbs. I don't have to burn the fat. So it's like you've got to know it's either one or the other.
It's one or the other. No, I mean, it goes back to that whole concept of people wanting to create their own diet, right? Based on, combining different things from different things they've read. But one of the easiest ways to go about understanding carbohydrates is to get yourself a copy of the glycemic index chart, because the glycemic index chart, it's been around forever. Some people like it, some people don't, some people.
I was just going to say, explain what the glycemic index chart is for those who might not know.
It literally associates a number, an actual number, with a carbohydrate rich food. So the higher the number associated with the food, it literally means the higher amounts of sugar that food or beverage or anything is converted into, right? The lower the number, the more, the easier it is for your body to not only use the sugar that's being converted, but to not have too much or any, in some cases, left over to be stored as
right. So
excess.
when we get this chart or this book or whatever we choose to do, or go online and look into it, the lower the glycemic number,
index, the lower the
better.
glycemic number, the better the carbohydrate rich food is. Sure.
Okay.
And I mean, intermittent fasting, that's another big one people talk about all the time. And it is a way to help balance out blood sugar levels and help to regulate insulin response. There's a lot of benefit to intermittent fasting. I do it myself on occasion. I think one of the greatest concepts that people overlook is that it's in the title. It's intermittent fasting. So it's not necessarily a lifestyle choice that's meant to be lived long term. Because again, we talk about sustainability. We talk about what can somebody do long term to sustain and maintain optimal levels of health and well-being. And some people may argue that and say, hey, look, I've been intermittent fasting for years and it works great for me. That's wonderful. At some point, the body is going to say, I don't know how well this is working anymore.
I'm done.
People will plateau.
Yes.
They don't seem to gain the exact benefits they started out with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I use intermittent fasting as a means to reset my body instead of using it as a full-blown lifestyle choice long-term. But there are values to each and every way of eating out there. But again, it goes back to understanding how sugar affects the body and understanding the sugar load on the body. Carbohydrates are not bad.
No, absolutely
They are not bad at all. And if you're choosing the right carbohydrates, you're going to gain incredible benefit in terms of how you feel. All of our clients get to eat carbohydrates. The good carbohydrates, if you will, the low GI carbohydrates.
And there are fruits that are lower in carbohydrates and sugar forms than others. And we allow them to put them in their smoothies and things like that. It's not that all vegetables are wonderful and you can eat whatever you want, because, corn, carrots, potatoes, they're all vegetables. And if you check them on the glycemic index, you may not want to choose them over perhaps spinach and kale and that, because you see those numbers and they're almost non-existent.
Exactly.
So it's a choice. It doesn't mean you never can have something again. No. But if you're going to do this, or if you're going to look at how carbohydrates
affect the body,
then look at the lower numbers on a daily basis. And if you're going to go to somebody's house for dinner and you see a high number carb, then okay, that's my little treat for today. Sure. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing at all. I think it really does boil back to the foundations of functional wellness and understanding the impact of the 5 foundational food and beverage categories and how they impact the body. Understanding all of that, it offers up a lot of clarity. And there is a simple path to understanding how all these foods work for us. There are benefits to each and every one of them. And no food out there is bad. Think about eating for the upcoming 3 hours of your day and, what it is you're trying to accomplish. So I hope we shed some light there on the dreaded C word. And guess what? We have, starting, I believe it's in a couple weeks' time, we have our next 7-day online metabolic activation challenge starting. Talk about a body reset. If you want to detox, if you want to reset your body and increase your metabolic performance and lose weight, feel great, then this challenge is definitely for you. Look us up, look it up. Go to www.healthexpertscanada.com. Everything about the upcoming challenge is right there on the homepage. You just click that link and it'll take you right to it. But I look forward to it, and I love my carbohydrates. I hope there's a lot of people out there too that start to look into them a little bit more specifically and understand how they work for us. So I'm Frank Peary.
And I'm Marilyn Mitchell. And until next time, remember, health equals wealth. So that's all the time we have today, but there's still so much more to talk about and learn. Head over to healthexpertscanada.com for more ideas on healthy living, and don't forget to like, download, and share this podcast with your friends. just for the health of it.